Revealed, the incredible journey of a billionaire who found unexpected love with a homeless girl. Ethan Walker sat hunched over in the corner of his favorite cafe, the dull hum of espresso machines and muted conversations drowned out by the unrelenting pounding in his chest. At 45, the billionaire tech mogul had everything: money, power, prestige, but the weight of his loneliness draped heavier than the autumn clouds outside. This gray afternoon had only deepened those feelings, amplifying the emptiness that crowded his thoughts. Could wealth truly insulate him from the ghosts of the neglected childhood that haunted him? He had built an empire with dazzling abstract ideas and slogans that often felt like hollow promises, having masked his old wounds with layers of success. But standing atop his power, he felt achingly unfulfilled. Each board meeting left him with a sense of dread, knowing that even the most successful pitch felt like a weak compensation for a lack of connection. No amount of money could heal that. As he sipped the bitter brew, his gaze fell upon her, a woman sitting by the window, laughing so freely that the shadows around her seemed to lift. Lily's laughter danced through the air, capturing Ethan's attention like a moth to a flame. She was homeless but radiated an energy that made the cracked cafe walls vibrate with light. She held no burden, no pretense. Just authenticity in a raw and beautiful form. The first time they exchanged words, curiosity crackled between them, and something inside Ethan began to unravel. For the first time, he wanted to go deeper than surface-level sympathy. Day after day, he found himself returning not as a savior, but as a friend. They shared stories over steaming cups, revealing layers long buried beneath his polished exterior. As he listened to her recount tales of survival and humor among hardships, guilt gnawed at his insides. How could he, with his silver spoon life, comprehend her struggles? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue, but the warmth that bloomed in their mornings began to chill as whispers of their connection reached his high-powered circle. Friends stiffened, family raised eyebrows, and the media circled like vultures, hungry for scandal. Would they understand that love was supposed to transcend societal divides? Or would they brand him a fool for pursuing something so improbable? In desperate attempts to bridge the growing distance, Ethan funneled money into shelters and job opportunities for Lily, believing he could fix it all with the stroke of a check. Instead, it backfired. His good intentions became a looming specter, weighing heavily on both their hearts, turning shared moments into shadows of isolation. She withdrew into herself, leaving Ethan with the bitter realization that he hadn't seen her struggle for authenticity, only the disparity in their worlds. As days turned into weeks, their laughter faded behind walls of confusion. In a spontaneous meeting at the park where it all began, Ethan felt time slip. The familiarity of the bench beneath him brought back each shared smile, now overshadowed by doubt. His heart raced as he confronted the depths of what he felt for Lily, not just infatuation, but a desperate need for connection that stretched beyond class. The wind carried a glimmer of hope, while the cacophony of the city felt distant, a reminder of the chaos that lay ahead. Would he reach out, risking it all to mend the ties that had frayed? Or was he too late, forever haunted by what could have been? Ethan sat on the park bench, grappling with his turbulent thoughts. The crisp air seemed charged with unspoken words, pressing down on him like an invisible weight. He felt a surge of determination mingled with fear. Could he truly face the collision of their worlds, or was he destined to stand on this precipice forever, paralyzed by his own privilege? He closed his eyes, picturing Lily's smile, the sparkle in her eyes as she shared her stories. In those moments, he felt seen not as Ethan Walker, the billionaire, but simply as a man craving deeper connections. Each laugh they shared resonated within him, echoing in the hollow spaces he hadn't noticed until she breathed life into them. But now, he had to confront the reality that his attempts to change her situation by pouring money into charities had only driven them further apart, taking a deep breath, he opened his eyes, filled with resolve. Change didn't begin from a distance, it came from understanding. If he truly wanted to be in Lily's world, he needed to know it, her struggles and victories, her joys and sorrows. This wouldn't be easy. It meant stepping outside of his comfort zone and embracing the discomfort of uncertainty, a task he had avoided like the plague throughout his life. The following day, Ethan took a desperate step. He traded his tailored suit for jeans and a simple t-shirt. He headed to the local shelter that he had once overlooked, thinking he could only help from the outside. The scent of reality hit him hard as he walked through the doors. This was a stark contrast to his world of polished glass and pristine offices. He introduced himself, not as the billionaire benefactor, but simply as Ethan. His heart raced as he met the eyes of those on the fringes of society. Each face told a story of struggle and survival. Their strength was palpable, and Ethan's respect for their resilience grew with each conversation. He listened, allowing their tales of hardship and hope to sink in. In the weeks that followed, Ethan dedicated himself to immersing in this world, the one he had only ever observed from afar. He volunteered at the shelter, offering his time and skills where he could. With every interaction, he felt his own walls beginning to crumble. Each moment of connection chipped away at the loneliness that had defined him for so long. But the more he learned, the more he questioned his initial motivations. Was he genuinely seeking to connect with those less fortunate, or was he still trying to save himself from the shame of his past? It struck him like a lightning bolt. The answers didn't matter as much as the journey he was embarking on. Learning this, he realized that vulnerability was a powerful tool, a weapon to shatter social divides and foster genuine compassion. With newfound clarity, Ethan figured it was imperative to reach out to Lily. Sitting on that same park bench, he knew he couldn't avoid confronting her any longer. He had to share his transformation, his commitment to understanding her world, and hopefully reignite the connection that had begun to wane. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Ethan stood up, resolute. He could no longer be a specter haunting the sidelines of her life. The moment had come to face the woman who had changed him in ways he could not yet fully articulate. With every heartbeat echoing in his ears, he stepped into the uncertainty, already feeling the weight of the moment. Would she even want to see him? Would she understand the evolution he had undergone? As he moved towards the familiar park entrance, the air crackled with the potential for change, and he steeled himself for the pivotal conversation that awaited. Just before he reached the meeting point, a shadow crossed his path, someone blocking his way. Ethan's heart raced as he recognized the familiar face that had once filled him with warmth but now stirred a whirlwind of anxiety. "Where do you think you're going, Ethan?" asked Jake, a childhood friend with an intensity that hinted at disdain. The confrontation loomed like a storm cloud overhead. Would this moment derail his plans, or could it pivot his journey in an unforeseen direction? Ethan's heart was a melting pot of emotions: fear, anger, anxiety, and a flicker of determination. Jake's presence felt like an anchor pulling him beneath the water. "I'm just heading to meet someone," he replied, trying to keep his voice steady, but it faltered, giving away the tension seething just beneath the surface. Jake scrutinized him with eyes that had known both friendship and betrayal. "Seriously? You're going to play the savior now? Just because you're a little lost? This is a farce, Ethan." Each word struck like a sharpened blade. Jake believed he was right, that Ethan's attempts to engage with those in need were nothing but a self-serving crusade. But the worst part was, a part of Ethan feared he might be right. The last thing he wanted was for Lily to see him as a man attempting to buy tenderness with empathy-laden heroics. "Why does it matter to you?" Ethan asked, an edge creeping into his tone. "Are you really that cynical, or are you just scared that I might actually be doing something worthwhile?" Jake scoffed, a dismissive laugh escaping. "Worthwhile? This isn't some charity project for you to flaunt. You have no clue what their lives are actually like." Ethan took a deep breath, pushing aside the growing frustration. "I'm trying to understand. Maybe if you opened your eyes, you'd see the strength in their stories, something you evidently don't care to notice." Jake crossed his arms, his body language radiating resistance. "Strength or weakness? You're blinded by guilt, man. Those people, including Lily, don't need your pity. They need real help, not some publicity stunt from a billionaire playing superhero so he can feel better about himself. The confrontation was igniting every seed of doubt Ethan had been harboring. Was this all just a performance? You're wrong, Ethan shot back, shaking with more than anger. I'm tired of living in a bubble. I'm here to find a bridge, not a facade. Yet deep inside, doubt gnawed at his resolve. He had to get past this moment. He couldn't afford to retreat now, not when he was so close to reclaiming his connection with Lily. Listen, Jake, he replied, his voice softer but firm, maybe I didn't come here for them. Perhaps I came here for myself, to confront my own shortcomings. But you have to understand, I have a responsibility now and a desire to be better. Jake seemed to weigh Ethan's words, the fire in his gaze cooling, but the skepticism lingered. You think you can just waltz into their lives, hunky-dory, and make magic happen? You're about to learn some tough lessons, Ethan. Just don't hurt her in the process. The warning echoed long after Jake turned away. It ignited a storm within Ethan, an internal battle between the fear of vulnerability and the strong need for genuine connection. Could he face the challenge of rebuilding a bridge to Lily without fumbling the opportunity, even if it meant navigating treacherous waters filled with doubt and judgment? With renewed intensity, he reoriented his focus on the path ahead. Ethan stepped past Jake, the confrontation a bitter taste in his mouth but ultimately a reminder of what he needed to do. He felt the urgency of his purpose like an electric current, compelling him to pursue the pivotal conversation he so desperately craved. Each moment that passed ramped up the tension. Time escaped him, and he couldn't allow fear to dictate his choices any longer. He approached the park entrance once again, his mind racing. What would he say to Lily? How would he explain his growth without appearing hollow? The words bounced around his mind, but he felt prepared to embrace the challenge. As Ethan rounded the corner, a figure caught his eye. A moment of recognition. Lily was standing near the bench, glancing at her phone, her expression a mix of hope and uncertainty, like a flower bending under the wind. Would she welcome him, or had he missed his chance? The breath caught in his throat as he focused on the frailty of the moment, realizing the depth of what was at stake. This wasn't just a conversation, but the potential for redemption. With their fates hanging in the balance, the inevitable question loomed in the charged air: what if everything he had learned fell short in this defining moment? Ethan's mind buzzed as he approached Lily, his heart thumping against his ribcage like a frantic drum. She looked up, surprise washing over her face at the unexpected sight of him. Her delicate features were shadowed by uncertainty, the delicate balance of hope and apprehension evident in her eyes. What had drawn him here, amidst issues he couldn't begin to grasp? Lily, he began, each syllable taking conscious effort, mirroring his internal struggle. Can we talk? She hesitated, her brow furrowed slightly. Why are you here, Ethan? That question pushed Ethan into a deeper introspection. It was a simple ask, but laden with complexities he had yet to unpack fully. I want to understand, he replied, the words pouring out before he had a chance to reflect on their implications. I need to make sense of everything: my life, my past, and what I hope to build. Her gaze shifted away, seemingly searching for solace in the park around them. Your life seems fine. You've got everything figured out, right? Fine. Everything at once, yet, the insistence from Jake's doubts surfaced. Every claim of strength felt like a paradox issuing from his life. I don't have it all figured out. That's why I'm here, Lily. I've spent too long in my own bubble, and it took a lot to realize how much I've ignored. Lily's expression softened, but there was still a trace of resistance, the kind that tells of bruised feelings. He could see the walls she had built, a defense mechanism honed by experience that was as impenetrable as steel. I don't want your pity, she finally said, her voice steady now. Too many people offer it, thinking they can save us. But that doesn't fix our problems. It just makes them feel good about themselves. I'm not here to feel good, he said sharply, surprising even himself. The rawness of his honesty hung between them, a tension that pulsated in the air. "Then why are you?" This was at the moment of reckoning. The scaffolding of his understanding began to crash down, leaving stark truths exposed. "Because I realize that I haven't been selfless. I've chased forgiveness without knowing the real meaning of empathy. I thought helping meant throwing money at situations, but I see now that it's about listening, truly listening." Lily's expression shifted, something intangible flickered in her eyes. Curiosity? Doubt? And you think you can just show up and fix everything with your realization? Ethan drew closer, urgency mounting in his chest like the tide rising against the shore. "No, I don't. I just want the chance to learn from you. To walk with you, if you'll let me. I'm willing to face my past. I'm trying." The silence that followed enveloped them both. He could see her weighing his sincerity, the gears of the moment grinding slowly in her mind. What if this was the breakthrough he so desperately sought? The potential for growth for both of them, an uncharted territory of understanding. But then came the second wave of doubt, flooding his thoughts with questions. Was it genuine or just an attempt to absolve his own guilt? "Why do you care?" she finally asked, emboldened yet skeptical. "What do you see in me that makes you want to reach out like this?" Ethan hesitated. The air crackled with tension, encapsulating their exchanged gazes. "Because I see strength in you, strength I've buried deep within myself. It's time I allow that strength to guide me, to build something real instead of hiding behind wealth." Their eyes locked, and in that moment, he sensed the fragility of the bridge he was attempting to build. But what if it could lead to a profound connection, far beyond what either had anticipated? The moment felt monumental, a fracture in the expected narrative, a potential transformation. What if Lily could see past the glimmer of his formerly hollow intentions and interpret them as something more? Just then, the sound of approaching footsteps disrupted their exchange, and Ethan's heart sank. A group of people rounded the corner, carrying their daily burdens, each face a reminder of their own struggles, whatever those might be. Would they shatter this moment he craved so desperately? Or would they propel him into deeper understanding? As he looked to Lily, both a question and a challenge hung in the air. Would she trust his intentions? Would she allow him to learn from her unmediated reality? Ethan braced himself, poised on the edge of uncertainty, knowing he was standing on the precipice of a significant emotional evolution. But as the familiar faces approached, a far darker truth loomed. How many other truths would he have to confront before he could forge real connections? Ethan's breath caught as he shifted his gaze, the impending crowd seemingly a wall closing in on both him and Lily. The laughter and chatter of the approaching group punctured the intense silence, reminding him of what was at stake. He had stepped into this moment hoping to unearth truths and forge a connection, yet the cacophony of the outside world threatened to drown his resolve. He felt a surge of panic, an urge to retreat, but instead, he pressed on. The clarity he had momentarily glimpsed was slipping, and with it, the strength he had hoped to project. "Can we step away?" he asked, casting a furtive glance at the intruding group. There was urgency in his tone, a plea to keep this moment alive. Yet, Lily remained firmly rooted, her expression unreadable. "You can't just run away from this, Ethan. If you truly want to understand, then you need to face it, whatever this turns out to be." Those words struck him like a cold splash of water. They resonated with the underlying truth he had dodged in different aspects of his life. The uncomfortable reality of confrontation led to clarity. Perhaps he was here to learn not just about her, but also about himself. As the group passed, laughter ringing in the air, Ethan felt a wave of introspection washing over him. Those were faces he recognized. They bore the same casual disregard he once had for those outside his world. The acknowledgement of their struggles shifted something within him, triggering an uncomfortable confrontation with his past decisions and the sheer privilege that had shielded him. "You're right," he said finally, the conviction returning to his voice. "I need to face this, to confront why I've avoided it all these years. But I want to do it with you." Lily studied him closely, her skepticism visible. "And how do you plan to do that, Ethan? You come here with money, drive, and privilege traits this world continuously rewards. But it can't erase the intangible barriers you've built around yourself. He felt the weight of her words, a challenge that magnified his sense of urgency. He needed to demonstrate his commitment to this evolution to show he was ready to dismantle those barriers. "Let's take a walk, just the two of us," he suggested, surprising himself with his own boldness. "I want to hear not just your story, but the stories of others. I want to listen to those narratives you're surrounded by, to experience them firsthand." She was silent for a moment, allowing the proposal to linger, weighing it alongside her own reservations. Finally, she nodded. "All right. But know that it will be uncomfortable. There's no way to sugarcoat those truths." There was an unmistakable hardness in her voice, a mixture of resilience and vulnerability that ignited a spark within him. With each step as they walked side by side, the park around them transformed into a different landscape, one filled with rich narratives and hidden emotions. He felt the burden of unspoken words pressing against his chest, a sudden realization surfacing. He had spent a lifetime navigating in his bubble, and the air was stale within its confines. As they strolled, Lily began to introduce him to the characters of the park families, individuals, those with their own narratives marked by shadows of hardship. The connections they made were visceral, embodying a world he had turned a blind eye to for too long. Ethan found himself mesmerized, swallowing details that stirred a tumult within him. Each story revealed layers he had never considered, pieces that shifted his understanding of not just philanthropy, but genuine connection. However, as he listened and absorbed, a new fear began to unfurl. What if this journey took him down paths he was unprepared to navigate? What if the truths he uncovered stirred something deeper, shattering the fragile restoration he was trying to build? He watched Lily engage effortlessly with those around them, each interaction a lesson in humility and authenticity. For the first time, he felt envious, but it was an envious rooted in longing for a similar voice. As they approached a small gathering near a makeshift stand where an elderly man played guitar, Ethan's heart raced. The raw emotion emanating from the music pulled him in like a magnet. He felt the walls crumbling further with every note he absorbed, but there was a growing uncertainty deep within. Could he truly unravel the layers of himself while witnessing the realities of others? Acknowledging that this was only the beginning, he turned to Lily as they watched a young boy dance joyfully, oblivious to the world around him. "Will I be able to face all of this?" Lily met his gaze with an intensity that ignited uncertainty in him again. "That's for you to discover, Ethan." In that moment, he realized he had opened a door he couldn't close now. The journey he had embarked upon was just beginning. But would it lead to the connection he sought or force him to confront even harsher truths yet to unfold? Ethan was enveloped by echoes of laughter and music, but everything felt surreal, like a dream teetering on the edge of reality. Lily's earlier words suffocated him with their weight, lingering like smoke in the air. What did it mean to truly confront those realities? He wondered if he had the strength to withstand the turbulence that was surely approaching. They lingered by the guitarist, an elderly man with hands worn by years of toil. He strummed the instrument with an ease that belied the depths of emotion embedded in each note. The joyous shake of the young boy's body seemed to resonate with something deep within Ethan, a longing he hadn't fully acknowledged until now. He fought an urge to turn away, to recede back into the safe confines of ignorance, but it felt counterproductive. "Why do you keep coming here, Ethan?" Lily's voice pierced through his thoughts, and he turned to face her. "It's complicated," he started, feeling the vulnerability tease at his resolve. "I suppose I've been seeking a way to connect, to understand, everything I've tried to forget about." "The harder truths?" she asked, wincing as she saw the recognition flicker in his eyes. Ethan nodded slowly, the admission stripping him bare more than he cared to acknowledge. "It terrifies me. Knowing that my past choices created a reality that I can change, yet I have to acknowledge the hurt I've caused." Lily crossed her arms, studying him as if he were a puzzle she was desperate to solve. "You're starting to realize that your privilege doesn't absolve you from the consequences of those choices. So, what's next? How do you plan to face what you've been avoiding?" He hesitated, curiosity dancing at his edges as he contemplated her words. Did he have a plan? The spontaneous journey he'd embarked on had felt like throwing himself into a river without considering how to swim. I think I need to start here, he answered, gesturing towards the small gathering of people. I want to talk to them, hear their stories, and face the breadth of their experiences. Lily seemed taken aback, her eyes narrowing in contemplation. They may not take kindly to your motives. You understand that, right? They've been conditioned to be skeptical of people like you. Despite the heaviness of her words, he felt an ember of determination ignite within him. I understand. But I can't let that scare me off. I need to prove that I'm willing to listen, not just with the intent to help, but to learn. It was a small flame against the dark fears that loomed ahead, the paths of uncertainty winding before him. As if picking up on Ethan's resolve, the music faded to an intimate hush, and an older woman approached them, her eyes glimmering with stories untold. Lily observed closely, her expression softening as she gestured for the woman to share. Standing at the threshold of vulnerability, Ethan felt something shift within himself. With every story told, he recognized pieces of his own journey mirrored back at him, reflected through the lens of hardship, resilience, and unyielding strength. Each tale felt like an emotional compass, guiding him toward a clearer understanding of himself, yet, amidst the blazing resolve, a dark shadow loomed. The responsibility of these revelations felt like a weighted cloak around his shoulders. What if they unearthed guilt or sorrow he had buried deep beneath his success? Each story resonated through him like a change in the wind, a reminder of the narratives left untold in his own life. As the sun began to dip below the horizon, painting the sky with hues of orange and gold, he mused over how much he had yet to learn. Could confronting these truths pave the way for change in him, or would it shatter the very foundations he had built around his identity? Ethan, Lily's voice broke his deepening reverie. Are you ready for the next step? This is just the beginning, but some doors, once opened, cannot be closed. He took a deep breath, his answer hanging on the precipice of uncertainty. I am ready, but what if I can't handle what's behind those doors? Then you'll have to find a way to handle it, she replied firmly, her unwavering gaze inspiring a flicker of courage. She continued, the real question, however, is whether you're willing to embrace every part, even the uncomfortable ones. That's where growth truly lies. Hesitation slithered in, but amidst it, one undeniable thought surged forth. Ethan knew this was a journey he couldn't abandon. And the unexpected consequences of facing the truth were not only daunting, they were essential for the path ahead. With that resolution hitting him like a wave, he responded, I want to embrace it. I want the entire journey just as it is. Lily nodded appreciatively, a hint of a smile creeping into her features. But before she could respond, the atmosphere shifted, the laughter of the previous group echoing faintly as a new presence cast a long shadow over them. Ethan's heart raced as a figure approached, a man whose confident demeanor proclaimed authority tinged with hostility. Something in his eyes flickered curiosity, but also something darker, and an electric current stirred in the air. Who are you, and what do you think you're doing here? The man challenged, zeroing in on Ethan. The moment of truth hovered around him, taut and unyielding. Would he rise to meet this unexpected confrontation head-on, or would fear twist his resolve into retreat? Ethan felt a surge of adrenaline coursing through him as he faced the man. Every instinct screamed to retreat, to hide behind the facade of his comfortable life, but he was acutely aware of the path he had chosen. The shadow over them felt tangible, pressing on his chest as he fought to maintain his composure. The man before him, with a sharp jaw and piercing gaze, demanded respect without uttering a word. I asked you a question, the stranger reiterated, his voice low and deliberately measured. Ethan took a moment to gather his thoughts. This was the reality he had sought, raw, unfiltered confrontation. I'm here to listen, he managed, his voice steadier than he felt. The man raised an eyebrow, a wave of skepticism flickering across his face. Listen. You think that's enough? You think people share their pain with strangers whose lives are completely detached from their own? Not entirely, Ethan admitted, propelled by a newfound sense of defiance. I know I can't fully understand their experiences, but I want to make an effort to learn. I want to be part of something real. The tension in the air crackled. The man's hard demeanor slowly softened as he folded his arms. You have no idea the skepticism that surrounds someone like you. You step in here with your privilege, and you think a few earnest words will erase your past. Ethan's thoughts raced. There was truth in that. He had shielded himself behind layers of success, rarely letting the consequences of his detached world penetrate his consciousness. This isn't about erasing my past. It's about acknowledging it for the first time. A noble intention, but words can only carry you so far. Are you ready for the consequences that might come with this journey? The man leaned closer, his tone dropping to a gritty whisper. People aren't just going to welcome you with open arms. Ethan felt that weight press deeper, but alongside it, determination unfurled. He suddenly recognized that he held the power to change his narrative. Then I'll earn that trust, no matter how long it takes, he asserted, conviction building in his voice. Trust isn't given, it's earned through actions. What are you prepared to do and give up? Because confronting your past means facing more than just stories. You'll demand openness, even from yourself. Those words hit Ethan, resonating deeply. He had always taken the easier route, valued outcomes over processes. This journey would require more from him than he ever thought possible. The man regarded Ethan with a newfound curiosity now. What will you sacrifice to create meaningful connections? Are you ready to confront not just their hardship, but your own? As discussions ebbed between silence and challenge, Ethan wrestled with the gnawing uncertainties within him. Who was he beyond the facades he had built? How many layers of his existence were tied to comfort at the cost of others' anguish? Before he could answer, Lily's voice cut through the undercurrent of tension. Let him speak, you don't need to interrogate him. If he is willing to show up, we owe him the chance to prove it. The man glanced at her, then back at Ethan. Though he had initially confronted Ethan with hostility, there was a flicker of respect in his eyes. Fine. Prove it. Start by talking to one of them, someone whose life is different from yours and whose story needs love instead of pity. Ethan felt a pang in his gut, a mix of excitement and dread. All right, he said, swallowing hard. Where should I begin? Talk to her, the man said, nodding toward an older woman sitting further up the pathway. She was wrapped in layers against the evening chill, her eyes cast down, hiding in what seemed like an impenetrable solitude. She holds stories that will break your perspective entirely. Just remember, you may not like what you hear. As he took a step forward, Ethan grappled with the gravity of his decision. Would he truly be able to face the difficult truths waiting in the seats of those who had suffered? Each step felt like a move toward an inevitable confrontation with painful revelations, a fissure ready to split open his life. He was about to plunge into the depths of another person's existence, and the stakes had never felt higher. Could he emerge transformed, or would this be yet another chapter in a life left untouched by real consequence? As he prepared to approach the woman, the reality of the paths ahead loomed ominously before him, each one veined with uncertainty but ripe with potential. Would he be the one forging new connections, or merely another fleeting voice in the symphony of unheard stories? Ethan moved cautiously towards the older woman, each step manifesting an internal battle. The whispers of the crowd faded away, replaced by the pulse of his heartbeat thrumming in his ears. He had faced board meetings and high-stakes negotiations, yet now he stood on shaky ground before someone who embodied the experiences he had skirted around for far too long. As he neared her, he faltered, his mind flickering through the milestones of his life, each one a reminder of the privilege and comfort he had long taken for granted. The woman sat alone, her weathered face lined with stories that he could hardly imagine. Would she welcome his curiosity or resent him for his intrusion? Excuse me, Ethan ventured, forcing his voice to break the heavy silence. She lifted her gaze slowly, and he felt the weight of her scrutiny. Yes. She replied, her tone wary yet curious. "I'm Ethan," he stated, extending a hand, realizing how absurd the gesture felt. Who offered a handshake to someone who had likely endured far more than he could comprehend? "I'm Mary," she responded, her eyes searching his, sifting through layers of intention. "What do you want with me?" "I want to listen. I want to understand," he said, the sincerity in his voice unmistakable even to him. "Understand?" Her laughter was soft, but edged with bitterness. "Understanding comes at a cost, young man. People think they want to hear stories, but few are willing to carry the weight afterwards." Ethan braced himself. "I'm prepared for that cost. I need to learn." "Learn what?" she asked sharply, her eyes narrowing. "That the world isn't as bright as you wish it to be. It's not just stories that get shared. Pain has a way of carving its mark." Each word she spoke pricked at his facade, unraveling the carefully constructed narratives he had told himself. "I've never faced these truths." "I never had to," he confessed, surprised at the admission tumbling from his lips. "Then you're already behind," she said with a soft sigh, her eyes drifting away to the horizon. "What dost thou require to create meaning beyond your silver spoon existence?" The metaphor felt harsh but illuminating. It punctured the bubble of comfort he had so tightly held on to. He considered his life the luxury, the ease, and the separation from suffering, all while others struggled through their days. What had he sacrificed in the pursuit of his own success? He was filled with ambition but lacking in authentic connection. "Will you tell me your story?" he asked, feeling newfound audacity rise within him. "Will you share your pain with me?" Mary turned to him, measuring the gravity of his request. After a pause that felt like an eternity, she replied, "I didn't choose this life, Ethan. No one does. It's not just sorrow, it's survival. And if you think you can just listen without being a part of the solution, you're mistaken." He felt naked under her scrutiny, questioning whether he was merely a passerby in her narrative, a transient figure who offered nothing of value. He was looking for salvation, but perhaps a splice of understanding could yield a shift in outlook both for her and himself. "I don't want to be just a spectator in your life. I want to be something more," he stated with an intensity that surprised him. "More?" Mary's voice held a trace of incredulity. "That's what they all say. But when it comes down to it, are you willing to sacrifice comfort? No one forced you into this world. People like you are eager to tread lightly, but what happens when the ground beneath your feet begins to tremble? Are you ready to jump?" The unease settled in Ethan's stomach. The truth to her query was palpable, he only needed to confront it. "I will jump whatever it takes to genuinely connect, to help, and perhaps to transform," he said, his determination firm. Mary's gaze softened slightly, as if wary of the sincerity shimmering in his eyes. "Then allow me to show you what that truly looks like. But know this: your journey begins not with words, but with action. It isn't just about me. It's about the many who have lost their stories in the cacophony of indifference." Ethan inhaled sharply, realizing the magnitude of Mary's offer. The indifference of his previous life felt like an anchor, dragging him down, but here lay the opportunity to strip those layers away. He could either remain in the comfortable shell he had known or dig into the tumultuous terrain of shared humanity. As he opened his mouth to speak again, the trajectory of his existence hung precariously in the balance. Would he have the strength to embrace what lay beyond, or retreat to the familiar? The decision shimmered on the horizon as he steadied himself before the truth waiting to be revealed. The real test was about to begin, and the path he would take remained shrouded in uncertainty. Ethan's determination surged in response to Mary's challenge, yet doubt nibbled at the edges of his consciousness. The stakes felt impossibly high. He had spent years insulating himself from vulnerability, honing his skills in corporate warfare rather than navigating the complexities of real human suffering. But now, facing the reality of a life detached from genuine connection, he felt exposed in a way that was both unsettling and exhilarating. "Action," he echoed softly, the word reverberating through him. It was time for a pivot, a transformation from passive observer to active participant. He could no longer stay on the sidelines. He would immerse himself in her world, no matter how daunting that might seem. "What do I do?" he asked, the thread of urgency knitting itself into his voice. Mary eyed him intently, the corners of her mouth tightening into a subtle smile, one filled with skepticism and a hint of hope. "Meet me here tomorrow morning. Bring nothing but your willingness to learn, to be uncomfortable, and to give of yourself." As he left her that evening, the neon lights of the city seemed to blare a different tune, vibrating with the potential of what was to come. He hardly slept, thoughts spiraling around the gravity of his choices. The luxury of his past life felt like a shackle now, and he questioned his readiness to part with it. Was he prepared to witness the raw edges of life, to interact with those who bore burdens far beyond his comprehension? The morning sun filled the sky with a cautious warmth as Ethan returned to meet Mary. Her presence was a comfort and a challenge. He could feel her expectations radiating as he approached. "So, here I am," he announced, trying to mask the anxiety bubbling beneath his skin. "Good," she replied, her voice steady. "We start with a visit to a shelter, where you will help serve breakfast. You will understand the rhythm of necessity." Ethan nodded, the weight of the task settling over him like a heavy coat. They walked together through the city, the honks and bustle fading into the background, replaced with each thudding step that brought him closer to an unknown domain. His heart raced, not just out of nerves but also out of an awakening, a transformation brewing within. As they reached the shelter, the air thickened with the scents of coffee and baked bread mingled with an undercurrent of unignorable desperation. A group of people milled about, some engaged in light banter while others sat aloof, their faces shadowed by weariness. Ethan's pulse quickened, the reality of Mary's world was vivid and stark. "Start by greeting those who come in," she instructed, her tone a blend of authority and encouragement. "Face them, acknowledge them. Remember, they are not invisible." He inhaled deeply, forcing himself to capture the fleeting courage within, before stepping forward. The first few encounters were awkward, the words tangled in his throat, and each smile felt stiff on his lips. But as the moments unfolded, he began to see beyond the overarching sadness. There were stories, there were laughs, even hope. The humanity of it knocked against the walls he had built over the years. With every plate filled and every story shared, Ethan felt himself shedding layers of detachment. Each interaction became a thread connecting him to the larger tapestry of life around him, a tapestry he had spent so long overlooking. He was dizzy with the emotions churning inside him, torn between the sorrow reflected in the eyes he met and the unexpected sense of purpose igniting within himself. As he helped a mother with her children, a fleeting connection sparked. "Thank you," she said, her voice smooth yet shaky. "You have no idea what this means for us." The raw honesty in her words struck a deep chord within Ethan. He had always been a giver in his business dealings, but this felt different. Here was a life that required something more than a monetary transaction. It demanded empathy, engagement, and an openness to pain he had only skimmed the edges of. Suddenly, Mary approached him again, her expression unreadable. "How does it feel to step beyond the facade?" Ethan hesitated. It felt both liberating and terrifying. The world he had stepped into offered him clarity about the human experience that he had long evaded. Yet with every realization came a weight, an understanding that had the power to change everything about how he viewed his life. "I don't know yet. But I can't go back to the way things were," he admitted, a sense of resolve washing over him. Mary nodded, the faintest trace of a smile breaking through her stoic expression. "Good. This is only the beginning. There will be choices ahead that will test your commitment." As he absorbed her words, the weight of his decision amplified. He was on the cusp of a journey that would probe the very fabric of his existence. Would he hold fast in his determination to embrace this new reality, or would he falter when confronted with its harsh truths? Ethan remained silent, contemplating. His heart raced as he realized that the most uncertain aspect of this transformation was not merely about understanding others, it was about discovering who he truly was and who he was willing to become. The door to change had cracked open, and he stood at the threshold, breathless with anticipation. Would he step through and face the challenges that waited within? Ethan stood in the heart of the shelter, now filled with the warmth of shared stories and fleeting connections. The lingering uncertainty that had shadowed him for months began to lift, replaced by a sense of purpose. Each interaction, each plate served, felt like a deliberate act of embracing vulnerability. With each moment spent among those he once overlooked, Ethan was uncovering profound truths about himself, truths he had spent a lifetime avoiding. Over the following weeks, he returned to the shelter with unwavering dedication. Ethan learned to navigate the complexities of human experience, pushing aside the initial discomfort and embracing authenticity. Each smile exchanged with patrons turned into a tapestry of stories, struggles and triumphs that wove through the air like music. The anonymity and detachment he once felt in his luxurious world dissipated, replaced by heartfelt connections that shattered his preconceived notions of worth and value. Mary became more than just a mentor, she transformed into a compass guiding him through the uncharted territories of self-discovery. On days brimming with stories of resilience, Ethan found himself opening up about his past, his battles with loneliness and the weight of inherited privilege. He no longer sought to transcend his experiences but to understand them deeply. As he connected with others, the guilt that once paralyzed him started to transform into empathy. This journey was not about absolving his past, but embracing it and allowing it to mold the future he yearned for. Ethan's evolution did not go unnoticed. Friends and family, initially apprehensive about his new devotion, began to witness his unwavering authenticity and commitment to real change. His name spread through the local media as a billionaire who dedicated his time to understanding homelessness not in the abstract, but embodied in the individuals he served daily. Instead of earning criticism, he found himself being recognized for the sincerity behind his intentions. Those who once doubted him began to admire his courage. The moment of reckoning arrived when he stood before the board of one of his companies, prepared to unveil his redefined vision. Gone was the man driven solely by profit margins. Instead, he presented a proposal that integrated social responsibility into the business model. He emphasized the need for corporate power to position itself as a vessel for social change. The room fell silent when he boldly articulated how empathy and connection could become the bedrock of future successes. He felt conviction flow through every word, every gesture. At that moment, as he pushed against the boundaries of his previous identity, Ethan caught a glimpse of himself transformed, a confident leader, one who leveraged his privilege toward amplifying voices that had long been silenced. He emerged not just with a new business strategy, but with a profound understanding of how true fulfillment was found in the depths of human connection. Despite the accolades and recognition, the true achievement came quietly, away from the spotlight. One evening, after serving at the shelter, he found himself sitting under the vast blanket of stars, side by side with Mary. "I never imagined a journey through discomfort could lead to so much clarity," he confessed, his tone thick with gratitude. Mary's eyes shone with pride and sincerity. "You've taken the leap, Ethan. But the road ahead will demand persistence and humility. This is just the beginning." Ethan nodded, reassured by her words. He had set aside the masks he wore for so long, claiming not just a space in this community, but an integral part of its fabric. He realized now that fulfillment comes not from gilded accolades, but from genuine growth, a fusion of individual achievement and compassion directed outward. In that shared silence, with the night sky stretched above him, Ethan finally felt whole. He had learned to conquer the ghosts of his past, anchoring himself in authentic connection rather than financial success. Success was now measured in moments shared, lives touched, and the unmistakable joy that stemmed from simply being present. And as the warmth of community wrapped around him, Ethan Walker embraced not just his newfound identity, but the promise of a brighter path ahead, a path where understanding paved the way for countless more stories waiting to be told. This is your moment to step into stories of personal transformation. If you found Ethan's journey inspiring, you need to subscribe now to the channel. Don't wait even one more second to share these uplifting narratives with your friends. Remember, leave a like now to elevate the algorithm, and comment below your thoughts and reactions about Ethan's incredible transformation. Share this video instantly with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion, because your support matters.